This is Reflections, and this is Noori Siddiqi, your presenter for today's program. My guest today is John Homewood, and we're discussing The Power of Now, written by Eckart Tolle. This is the first of a 10-part series, and in Chapter 1, You Are Not Your Mind, we're going to look at how actually getting out of your mind and into the present moment, you can actually create the power in the now. Now, those who have not found their true wealth, which is the radiant joy of being and the deep, unshakable peace that comes with it, are beggars, even if they have great material wealth. They are looking outside for scraps of pleasure or fulfillment, for validation, security, or love, while they have a treasure within that not only includes all those things, but is definitely greater than anything the world can offer. The word enlightenment conjures up the idea of some superhuman accomplishment, and the ego likes to keep it that way, but it is simply your natural state of felt oneness with being. It is a state of connectedness with something immeasurable and indestructible, something that, almost paradoxically, is essentially you and yet is much greater than you. John, how would you like to expand on that? That was an extract of Chapter 1 from the book The Power of Now.
Yes, it's so simply written, but it's very profound. You know, when I first started reading this book, there are certain things that I initially rejected. And looking back, I know why I rejected them. And I rejected them because of my ego, because of who I thought I was. I had, in 1999, when I started to change my life, I started a company called Mind Enhancement Systems. I had been on a course which taught me about mind power. And I had discovered that what you think and what you feel, you create your life. And I started to take responsibility for everything I had created and started to work with my mind and my emotions to create a better or a different future. And I'd started giving mind power training courses. And when I started reading this book, I mean, the first chapter is that you're not your mind. And I thought, here I am teaching people how to increase the power of their mind. And along comes this guy and says, but you're not your mind. And it really, I thought, negated the work that I was doing. So I had a problem with that concept of doing away with the mind. And that he puts forward the concept that the mind is actually the problem. And so initially I had a problem with that. But now I really do understand we mustn't get caught up on words. Words are always pointing us towards a deeper truth.
Yes.
And for most people, words are what create divisions. And it's when we define something, we put it inside our head, and we think we know what it is. But in fact, most concepts are not, we can't define them, we can't place them in a box. We try and do that with our mind, but it's not possible. So this concept of mind, for most people, it is who you are. It's your fundamental state of being. And Descartes made a statement, I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
And as Eckart Tolle puts it, that is a fundamental error which most of us make. We think we are our thoughts. Who would we be without our thoughts? But in fact, if you really just consider this for a moment, where are the thoughts coming from? Who is that which is giving rise to the thoughts? And it is another part of you. You know, you are the thinker. You're not your thoughts. And you are that which gives rise to your thoughts. So if you are something which is giving rise to the thoughts, you cannot be your thoughts. So there's another part of you. So that got me thinking that maybe there's a deeper part of myself that isn't my mind, that transcends the mind. And so for me, that was quite a fundamental shift to start to understand this concept. And I must say, 7, 8 years down the path of this understanding, every single day I go deeper and deeper into this understanding. It's not something most of us can grasp in an instant. Some people do become enlightened in an instant, but I think that's a very rare occasion.
Right.
But for most of us, it's a journey. It's a journey of discovery. And the part of or the most fundamental part of the healing process is to separate your identity from your thoughts.
Right.
And for most people, that is the hardest thing to do because we have so identified who we are with our thoughts. And
So we've got to let go of the mask.
That's right.
So the mask actually stops us from allowing us to feel connected and allows us to give rise to an illusion of separateness from yourself and from the world around you, because you're actually not operating in a space of oneness.
That's right. Now, that mask is the egoic identity that we hold about ourselves. It's, as I say, when you're born, you get given a basket, and that basket is your name.
Right.
Parents lovingly give you. And into that basket, we put everything that happens to us and all the goodies we collect. We put our little toys into there. We put our education into there. We put our relationships into there, maybe even our children into there, and our job title into there. And ultimately, we think we are the basket. And there's nothing wrong with having a basket full of goodies.
Yes.
But the problem is when you think you are the basket, you become the basket case. That's
Absolutely.
insanity.
Yes.
Because you're not the basket. You are that which holds the basket. And we get so caught up in this external identity, and unfortunately the external identity always brings us pain. Always. That's the nature of the external mind and the ego.
So ultimately our perception of ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, leaves us as an isolated fragment where we actually then start operating from fear and conflict within.
Yes, and that's right. And what you said earlier was so correct. You see, every basket is separate. Every identity is separate. Every mind has a separate identity. And it's that identity of being separate that creates this underlying fear, this underlying anxiety, this underlying perception that it's survival of the fittest. I've got to fight the world out there in order to be. And that's a basic error which humanity has made for many hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, this idea of being separate, because separateness will always bring about a concept of me versus you, and that I'm not good enough, that I have to have more in order to be more. And that is a very profound shift when you start working with presence, because you start letting go of this egoic me, this little mind-made me.
Now, we often think of our journey to enlightenment as in hope and possibility of the fact that it will be the end of suffering. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, first of all, I think it's necessary to understand that enlightenment doesn't come in the future. It's not a future event. The mind, you must understand, works in time. The mind gets its identity from the past, and it looks to the future for its fulfillment or for its salvation. That is the nature of the mind. It's a four-dimensional tool, and the four dimensions are, well, the three dimensions of space, which is length, height, and width, and the fourth dimension, which is time. And the mind itself is a four-dimensional tool, so it always looks for who it is in time and for its fulfillment in time. But what we're talking about here is something that you're not able to really grasp with that time-based processor called the left hemisphere of the brain. And that is that the present moment is the only thing you ever have. It's the only place you can find your fulfillment. It's the only place you can find peace. And that present moment isn't based in time. It's the only thing you ever have, and only thing you ever will have is the present moment. If you think about your past, when you were there, it was the present moment. And we look to the future as if it's going to be something different. But when we arrive in the future, we find, oh my goodness, it's not the future, it's the present moment again.
Yes.
And in fact, there is only the present moment. And so enlightenment as a concept isn't something that you can get in the future.
No.
You get that by actually starting to disidentify yourself with time, with past, with future, and start to live more present, more fully in the now. And as you do that, so you start to reach a depth that wasn't available to you before when you were caught up in your thoughts about past and future.
And in which you are able to truly exercise your free will, which is your God-given right.
That's right, because as you become more present, so you let go of this past conditioning, of this subconscious conditioning, of these programs that are running around and around and around in your subconscious that are driving you. As you become more present, you become fully in control off your thoughts. So your thoughts stop driving you, and you start driving your thoughts. So in other words, you start being the conscious thinker instead of the unconscious thinker.
So you're getting behind the steering wheel of your own life.
That's right. And
Wonderful.
I use that analogy, in fact, to help people understand how we can move forward with this, and that is to pretend that you have a steering wheel in front of you. And when you find your mind wandering into the past or going into the future, just pull that steering wheel back into the present moment. So physically see in your hands the steering wheel and turn it from the left, which I would visualize as the past, into the center position, or as it veers to the right, which I would say would be the future. Bring it back into the center, and the center is always what is now in my life, in this particular moment now.
John, I'd like you to hold that thought. Thank you for that. We're going for a short break. We're discussing The Power of Now by Eckart Tolle with my guest, John Homewood.